2017. I'll just call the meeting of Finance Audit Committee meeting to order. Is there any late items, Mr. Dever?
No, Mr. Chair, there's no late items.
Thank you. Motion to, any late items from the table?
Mr. Chair, I was wondering through staff, or however that saying goes, to you, to Victor, is it possible, since we're at a finance meeting, I wouldn't mind for my own simpleness at times, say the last 12 years of property tax increases, including a paragraph with the previous, when I started this term, the projected property taxes were going to be until we changed it, please. I wouldn't mind that timeline. Does that make sense?
We can certainly provide that. We are going to have the conversation on taxes again in setting up the 2017 ones. So as part of the background, we can provide that.
My reasoning is, I'm hearing a lot of rhetoric. I know it's just social media. I don't live by it, like some. But the reason is I'm hearing a lot of people coming to woodworks worrying about put the referendum aside or not. The reason I bring that up is I'm hearing a lot of people sit for worrying about property taxes all of a sudden, but the old regime, old era before this council, and I got people that were part of the system back then talking about property taxes, and former managers talking about property taxes, and we're actually the only council that's actually put a conscious effort. Even though some people at this table voted against the taxes, we're working hard to keep taxes in check. So I'm tired of those arguments out there, so I won't have a rebuttal. Say, no, I'm not going to get thrown around the mud on property taxes. When we worked hard, rolled up our sleeves, you guys have actually, we've done a great job. Because I've been people out there who are even saying concerned about taxes. Well, when they were here, they weren't concerned about taxes. If anything, they thought it was just an ATM. And I'll stick to my line. I don't care what anyone says. So I want that timeline, Mr. Chair. Does that make sense? Was I clear?
Several questions. The 2015 to 2019, when we came on council in 2014, so the 2015-2019 was 5-year financial plan was already established by the previous council. Yes. Essentially when we came in 2016 to 2020, now 2017 to 21, our 5-year plan. So we have all of that information that would probably be quite easily accessible for our staff to provide you, or for you to search that information out to determine what our forecasted budget implications and tax increases are 2017 to 2021. Is it a reasonable request to have that information provided to you again? Sure. And I think that's all that I can.
Since this was an addition to the agenda, maybe you want to edit, you guys can debate it, or you just want to provide direction to.
We can add it if I'm sure what we're adding is then under 6E, if that's the appropriate place.
Yeah, 6D.
And to seek the 5-year plan, or the you want the previous 5
12 years or 10 years at least, because I know being a resident here forever and having a house here where it's going up. So I just want to show the diligence we've had, because I don't know if even acknowledge the hard work we've done in that area. It's just.
Well, I think much of the work that you're speaking to is kind of current, and nobody really thinks, in all likelihood, backwards and forwards where we might be going, but sort of the current year. So if I understand correctly, you're looking for a 10-year window,
yeah,
going back 5 and then the 5-year plan for the tax increases that we've experienced.
And my final comment,
is that
perfect. My final comment, the reason is, when I see it on social media, former managers and articles and former council members all of a sudden grandstanding on how worried about property taxes when they were in these seats. I did not see anyone fighting like this council. Has to keep working hard around like you guys and us to keep tax in check. So I find it cool. So I just want those documentation, please. Thank you. And I'm thinking, not to debate you, Victor, but it's not really a debate. It's just common. I'm not here to debate it. It's just information I think I'm entitled to receive.
Sure. So we have this now then as the sort of a 10-year tax window,
yeah,
and we have it as 6D. And as opposed to discussing it now, we can approve this agenda as amended, and we can discuss 6D when we get there. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, sure. Motion moved and amended as agenda.
Thank you. Motion moved by Mayor McKay, seconded by Councillor Yoakum. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move to, need a motion to adopt the minutes, February 8th.
So moved.
Moved by Mayor McKay, seconded by Councilor Thorner. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Our first item on the agenda, and just, I have another meeting, I apologize, at 11:30 in the North End that I can't miss. So if we go to 11:10-ish, I will have to vacate the chair and someone else will have to continue the meeting on my behalf.
We have a light agenda. I think we should.
I don't know. Feels pretty heavy. So our first item is 5A, our Director of Communications, Philip Cooper, and our another gentleman, Ross Collicutt, to provide a PowerPoint presentation as it relates to our new website.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I inquire as to why this item is on the agenda of the Finance and Audit Committee?
I would ask staff to please respond to that. I wasn't part of setting up the agenda, so I will just ask for staff to please look at it.
So IT now falls in finance, and the way the committees are structured, this comes through that process. So between IT and communications, they've been working on this for a while, and we thought this is the best way to discuss this.
Supplemental?
Sure.
Through the chair, is that covered under the scope of the of this committee? As when we set this up, is it under the terms of reference of this committee?
I don't have them in front of me, but I think it would be.
We're not sure.
It's a technology issue. It would be.
Finance and audit is. I'm not trying to debate. I'm sorry, here, Mr. Chair. Finance and audit would also cover IT.
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
All right. This thing turned on? Yep, sounds like it. Okay, just want to apologize. I've got a bit of a cold, so I might sound kind of funny and a bit sluggish, but bear with me. So we're going to be giving you an update on the website. It's been a project that's been underway for quite a while. I'm trying to remember when it actually kicked off. 2014, I believe. It's been a process in the making, and it's an important thing for us to be discussing. So we'll kind of walk through how we got to where we are now, and then Ross is going to deliver a review demo of some of the main pages for you guys to take a look at. So this is the existing website. We're all quite familiar with this. It was introduced, I believe, in 2009, which makes it approximately, was it 2008? 2008. So it's a 9-year-old website, which in today's environment is, we got our money's worth. This is what they looked like back in 2008, and of course they've come a long way since then. I actually remember when this website was launched. I was living in northern Alberta, Fort McMurray, and it actually got a bit of press up there as an example of what a good municipal site could look like. So it's done its time, but we now need to move on to something different. So you have to ask yourself, why invest money in creating a new website? And there's a couple of key reasons. In particular, the first item, when the website was launched in 2008, all of those fancy phones you have on your desks were in a much more primitive state. People were still using flip phones. The data management programs that people had access to through Rogers Telus, very, very reduced amount of information being transmitted. And a lot of people nowadays, of course, visit websites via their phone. So there's a big need to improve the website, not just from the traditional, I'm at my desk perspective, but what am I actually looking at on my phone? And how does that interface come across? So a lot of the enhancements have come through the phone development piece in this particular upgrade. We also put a bit of effort into the language around the website. Over a period of years, the content can go from being plain language to very technical. So we did about a 5-month review process of all of the language on the website to put it back into a plain language state, so that when the new website is launched, you've got language that works, language that connects with people, and it's not all kind of gobbledygook and complicated text. There were always feedback elements provided to us around the searchability aspects of any website. The old website had its ups and downs, so there was a lot of effort put into improving how the search engine works. And finally, the homepage. This was actually kind of interesting when I started. I didn't realize that a lot of this content, apart from the text, we couldn't actually upgrade. We had to work with the original software developer to make substantial changes to putting in key features like the banner at the top or changing some of those icons at the bottom. There were costs involved in doing that, so we only had half of our ability to actually upgrade the homepage. And I often get requests from members of council or members of other staff saying, "Hey, we gotta push some information on the homepage," and that involved a lot of difficult discussions, often with a developer, to do that. So we engaged yes.
If I could, just a comment, once you get onto that website, it's excellent. It's very in-depth. It served us really well.
It did, yeah.
The Google search is fantastic, and I've never really been at a loss. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work to be able to find things. When I compare my research on this website to other municipalities, it's a world of difference.
Yeah.
So that content issue is, we got to be, our people have to be complimented for that. It served us very well.
Right, and as I mentioned, I remember when it was launched, and I wasn't even living here, and that was one of the things that came up. I think Nanaimo was a bit of a leader at the time in having the Google interface. So to kick off the review, we started with a content strategy project. So there was an audit done to review the existing website. That was followed up by a content review exercise of some 400 pages to come up with recommendations on how it could be structured, how you can integrate URLs with content, some best practices that have emerged over the last 9 years. So all of that was taken into consideration. We hired a company called Graphically Speaking. They were the actual designers of the new website. And then finally, there was the migration process of some 5,000 plus files. And that's been going on for some time now. It takes a bit of time to do that kind of work. New features. So I mentioned the mobile-friendly aspect. That's a big piece. The actual interface is relatively simple, but there's a lot of work behind it making it work effectively. Easier to update the CMS, which is a content management system that the staff use to update this website. We have a relatively decentralized approach where staff are trained, giving them permissions to go in and update things. It's a much cleaner and simpler way of updating the website, so it's easier for people to pick up and learn. And when you have something that's easy to use, that motivates people to want to actually use it, rather than, geez, updating the website's a real nuisance. I'll get to that later. This is a lot easier and simpler to use. I mentioned the plain language. It's not organized by department. It's organized more around functionality, and there have been different methods of designing municipal websites over the years. This one's around, I'm a citizen. I don't think in terms of departments. I think in terms of, I want to find out when the garbage is going to get picked up. So the way in which the menus work reflect city services rather than departments. We also set up a governance committee made up of staff, and they were brought together every couple of months initially, and then every quarter to review, provide content, ideas, and kind of continue to move it all forward. The current status, we're now running internally for testing, so IT has enough of it sort of in a ready state that they can do the testing component. We're continuing to work with the staff writers to fine-tune the content on the website and make any changes that are deemed. And finally, I think we're going to be inviting the public to get involved. We want to get some feedback on this before we launch it live. So we're going to be sending out an announcement to include a group of public volunteers to come in and check it all out, click on things, provide us their input. And then if we need to make changes, we'll do that before we then launch it later this year. And we've actually had a couple of, Ross can probably talk to this more than I can, but we've had a couple of opportunities where we've actually gone out to the community and said, hey, we want your input. Quite often when you launch a brand new website, there's a lot of subjectivity around that. People have different opinions on how it looks or how things are organized. So we have tried to include the public at various stages. I think there have been about three stages where we've reached out to them. They've met in small focus groups, or they've provided feedback. There was one exercise we did where they did sight test. It's where you look at a page and you kind of pick where your eyes would go to make for the best connectivity, stuff like that. So there's been lots of public engagement, and we're anticipating a late spring launch for this. So this is where Ross takes over, and he's going to do, I think, a live demo or work through these pictures. I'm not sure which one, but here he is.
Is this the new look?
This is the new look there.
Cleaner.
Just wait until the homepage loads up here. Loading. So this is the brand new homepage there. Similar to the old site, we've got a banner up near the top and a news section lower down to there. We've really tried to clean up the homepage. The homepage is sort of where you make your first impression. You want important items to really bubble to the top there. When something's going on in the city, you don't want people to have to dig for it and spend minutes, dozens of minutes, hours trying to find it. You want to get them straight there. You want to get them the information, and so they can get on with their day, complete their actions, and get out of there. So nice big search bar right in the middle of the interface, so that it's if you like searching, you go straight there. You can go straight to the search. You can probably get to where exactly you want to go within a couple of clicks. Scrolling down a little bit, we'll have our news section. This is automatically populated by a variety of areas around the site. All our news releases come straight into there. Other regular news about newer sections around the site or other bits and pieces will all funnel into this main news section. And these are our top requests. These will be populated by the most trafficked, the most popular links at that time. So around tax time, taxes are going to be a link on there. Around activity guide time, there'll be a link on there. Any other issues, we can mix and match those links up there depending on what people need to see at the time.
Quick question, Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Or do you want to
Well, I'm just wondering if we just reserve our questions till the very end, and then
Yeah.
so Ross can get through his presentation and
Do
then
it to the end.
make note of your questions, and then we'll go from there.
Menus up at the top, instead of doing sort of a multi-level drop-down system like the previous website that was a bit hard to use if you weren't great with the mouse. If you moved the mouse off of the menus, they disappeared and you sort of had to start again. These ones are just a large menu with all the different links in it. They go down 2 levels from the beginning and is just a nice large area to see as many links as you can. If you don't really know what you're looking for, it gives you a little bit of an opportunity to browse a little bit and see, refine your search maybe if you're not using the search bar, and then to click on something. Down 1 level, we've got sort of an overview page of sorts that is a bit of a table of contents for the section. If you land on one of these pages, you may not know where you're going. They'll, instead of giving you a whole bunch of information from that section, kind of a deluge of facts and figures and everything, we've trimmed it down to only a few links, trying to get you into exactly where you need to go as fast as possible. Regular pages have a search bar up here at the top. So if that's where you're currently looking, if you've made it all the way down to the bottom and you're still not sure where to go, there's another search bar down at the bottom, so you don't have to spend time scrolling all the way back up to the top. And these are the first 2 levels of navigation in the site. So if you're not sure where to go and you've made it all the way down to the bottom, then hopefully you'll be able to get a rough idea of where you need to go through these links down at the bottom. So all in hopes of reducing scrolling, reducing the time to get to exactly the information you need to get to. Regular content pages, big bold headings, a little bit bigger font than is usually on websites to make it easier to read. We've got an aging population in Nanaimo, so it's a little bit easier to read for them. We'll likely be making it a touch smaller during the testing. A lot of people have commented on how big it is. So one of the processes we're doing throughout the beta testing right now is gathering all this feedback, seeing what people think, seeing how people are using the site, and then we'll be integrating a lot of that feedback back into the design and the content changes in the weeks to come. So a lot of the content is laid out to make it as simple and as clean and understandable as possible. Some of the sections on the website have changed. For example, we've pulled together all the project-based information into one project-specific search. So you can search for keywords, categories, a status on each of the major projects that Nanaimo's engaged in. And that'll link off to, you go into the detail pages, and that'll link off to lots more resources for that specific project. But it will be one main area for all the projects to be under. You won't have to go searching and sorting all the other information on the site to see if you can find project information. All of our custom applications that we've written through the IT department look and feel exactly the same as the website. It won't feel like you've gone off to a whole nother website. You won't have to learn another interface. You won't have to try and get back to the regular website. They're all embedded right within this website. So this is a custom application that we've built to search parks. And it looks exactly the same as every other page. All of these banner images up at the top that you see here are currently the same. We've got a ton of high quality photography from a photographer here in town on a bunch of the Nanaimo facilities, parks, events that we will be replacing those images with in the near future before we launch to the public. So each category, each section will have its own photography that is related to that section. Gives a little bit more of a colorful look and a good feel to the pages when you've got some good photography up there. That's it for the demo.
Great, guys. Thank you very much.
Oh, for sure, yeah. One of the most important parts here, not everyone's looking at it on a desktop. In fact, a lot of our traffic, just more than half now, is being viewed on mobile devices, tablets, phones, who knows what else. It could be your car, your fridge soon. So we're not really sure. So we didn't want to make an iPhone-specific application or an Android-specific application. We just make it so that if it's that size, it works on any device. So you can size it down to be about a tablet size. Everything kind of just floats nicely, and it won't be cut off. It'll just sort of be pushed down. And then when you get down into a much smaller device like a phone, you get a very narrow screen like this, and then you've got a slide out menu right at the top there. So every single page on the website sizes down like that really nicely, including our applications. So everything will be very mobile friendly. One of the issues we have with the Path site that does have a mobile version, but it's very stripped down. There's very minimal graphics there, built for when phones were, say, flip phones or something, and you were paying for every meg of download. They had to be really small. That's not really the case anymore. We can add some more graphics to it, make them nicer to look at, nicer to use, and they'll work on every device going forward now.
Perfect, thank you. Don't leave, guys, 'cause I'm sure there's going to be some questions for you. I have Bill, and is there any other questions? And is Wendy on?
No.
So I have Bill, then Bill, please.
BY or B?
BY.
Thank you, gentlemen. 3 quick questions. The first page, I know it says infant stages, and it's still the creation mode. And since we've taken ec dev in-house, we gotta get that committee still rolling and all that stuff. And if you're from wherever you wanna do business in the town, I wanna make sure we have someone that's splashy, enticing, like come to here and do business, we'll make it work for you type. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't notice that. This isn't a critique. This is phenomenal. It's great, by the way. And secondly, I'm not sure where tourism is too, whether it's in-house or wherever with this group. Well, I know where it is. So I sort of wouldn't mind people with that. Those just 2 quick comments there, because those are sort of key. And then also my simple question is, are we gonna get an app?
What type of app?
Like, all those, I love apps. People love apps.
Yeah, maybe I can
Thank you.
speak to both of those for sure. Yeah, thank you very much for your feedback. There's going to be a ton of feedback, and we welcome it. We'd like as much as possible. Seeing it from different eyes really just makes the website better and better. Tourism, things like tourism, and RDN, transit, they will all have a section on the page that a lot of people come to our site and they go, well, don't you guys handle this or that or this? Yeah. And we don't really, or sometimes we do, and we need some information on there for them, if only just to provide an explanation and a link.
Or steer them
where
the right
it's supposed to go. Exactly. Yeah. We don't actually handle the Nanaimo Transit, but it's over here. Help them get to where they need to go instead of just kind of providing a blank dead end for them to see if they can figure out themselves. So that definitely is on the list of things to do. Tourism sort of changed in the last little bit here, and we have yet to get to those updates. So there will be a bit of information there around that. So we just need to create some of those pages. Coming up into the sort of final stages of creating all the new pages on the site, and it's a bit of a challenge running. We'll probably be doing beta testing for another little while here. Bit of a challenge running 2 websites at the same time, keeping content in sync. So, but definitely right before we go launch to live, everything will be up to date and perfectly synced. In terms of the application, the first step is to get a very mobile-friendly website so that it works when you just go to the website on those ones. And IT is looking into options for applications right on those phones because, yeah, they are super convenient. You just find them in the App Store, download them right there. We've got a couple of third-party ones coming down the pipe for other applications. One of our big questions sort of is, do you make sort of a mega everything Nanaimo app, or do you split them off into nice little specific, easy-to-use applications? Yeah. So in talks with other municipalities that have done both to see what kind of the best option and our best steps forward are.
Thank you.
Maybe just an additional comment. This box across the top that's scrolling back and forth, that's a big enhancement for us, because with that I'll be able to highlight major announcements, hometown hockey, things that the council in the past has said, hey, how come you're not getting enough presence on the homepage? So there'll be a lot of additional kind of flashing lights through that bar that are important. The other thing that's worth pointing out, and I have the first interview tomorrow, is the city, as you will recall, approved a digital content specialist for my department, and part of their portfolio will be to provide a common lens on the website. The current structure of our website is relatively decentralized. There's no one position that kind of looks at it globally. And with that position on board, we'll have that functionality. So there will be people sort of doing their part to update it, but there'll be another person that looks at it all the time and determines how best is it working. Do you have all the different connections working? Have you got a common voice across the website? And what are we doing to promote the things that we want to have front and center on that homepage? So those are all things that are coming together as this website kicks off and gets launched.
Thank you. Phil, thank you. Through the chair, what's happened with the map? Is the map going to be more device friendly, or is that a different project?
That is another project that we're just starting to work on right now, upgrading the Nanaimo map into new software. So I'm not sure exactly when launch from that will be, but will be more device friendly when it does come out.
Okay, thank you. It's not intended to be a critique, but I know there's a lot of research done these days about even advertising and marketing about I think one of you touched on, I think Philip did, where your eye first goes to, and your first impressions when you arrive there. I find this to be, not unlike a lot of other websites, somewhat clinical or an institutional, as opposed to if you go to Calgary's website, there's, it's there, it's in your face, and it's trying to give you impressive views of the city. And I don't know if there's been any comparisons, but that's my first impression when I saw the homepage. The other one was concentrating on items that are of current interest to the community. We're going to be launching at some point automated garbage. That's going to be of huge interest to the community. Recently, we've gone through snow removal. If you check the Prince George website, they've got not only a whole diagram, flow chart, but they've also got a map that clearly and simply explains to the community 24 hours, all the roads in red, 24 hours, all the roads in green, 48 hours, and all the roads. So it's all there. So everybody can easily tell when their road is going to be serviced or when the auxiliary roads are going to be serviced. I'm just thinking about those topics that are current, like those.
I can speak to the first question you had, and it's something that the committee spent a lot of time discussing, and that's the first impression when you hit the site. One of these cities you gave an example of, Calgary, came out with their webpage, I believe it was in 2010, and it was a search-centric model where they have really a fantastic image of their community, and then there's simply a Google search box. And we looked at that, and we kind of decided whether that was a good fit. A lot of cities initially thought that was a fantastic methodology, and they've actually then started to steer away from that because a lot of people are still looking for menus and pull-downs. Once you get into the second and third level pages on that particular website, you'll find it looks very similar to what we're launching, and that's, of course, where you spend the most of their time. The other thing, too, is cost. I can't recall what Calgary spent, but I believe it was in excess of $1 million.
That was Vancouver.
Vancouver. Okay, so some of the top cities in Canada, they're spending big bucks on these environments. We're like at a tenth of that, so you get what you can afford, and we tried to push as much into this as we could, recognizing that we're not in that league and we haven't got those kind of resources. So I'm going to let Ross speak to the other parts of your question. I just wanted to clarify the fit and finish and how we arrived at it.
Thanks. I find it interesting they spend $1 million on their website and only $8,000 on their new logo.
Should have spent more on the logo. Just sort of as a final point for the finish as well, and going search centric, we had looked at that and thought about it as well. It can be tough for some people to use those websites because you're sort of breaking conventions. It's like when you upgrade to a new version of Windows or a new version of Word document processor. When things change and they go to all sorts of different places, it can be tough to use. So we tried to strike a bit of a balance between having it very searchable, very easy to search, and having that sort of a bit older, sort of more traditional browse method with the menus up at the top there. So trying to go for a bit of a balance in between, and time will tell. We're measuring a lot of all the pages to see how much traffic is going to them and how they're getting to those pages to see how most people come in. Are they coming in through Google? Are they going to the homepage? Are they using bookmarks? And then we can sort of see the paths that people use on the website and start to optimize for those ones. To speak to your other question about the important community features on there, the top requests on the front page there will direct people to any big happenings that are going on at that time. And in terms of what information and applications are there, we're getting more and more information and more applications and software built right into the website every day. Something like the snow removal maps. I know that's been talked about in the past and just isn't on the books yet to do. But something like that, we're upgrading all our mapping software, and the new Nanaimo map will come out. That will let us do give us a lot more mapping functionality, and let us do it faster. So that may be in the near future, something like that.
Great, thank you.
Gordon.
look at simple, and I found our current website, quite simple to use. Very straightforward, very easy. If I want to look at an agenda, it's right there on the first page. News is on the first page. There's a lot of stuff that I don't really use on the first page. So when this gets up, I'll be looking at ease of use. And, I know lately, and this goes to actually what Councillor Yoakum was talking about, I've been trying to find the information on previous tax increases over the years, and it's been a bit difficult at times because you have to phrase it properly. And because you'll get about 6 different things on one thing, and then if you start looking through them, you're trying to find that 2016-2020 budget, and you'll find the previous one before the final one, and so on and so forth. So, yeah. So ease of use it'll be interesting to see what people think.
Yeah, so we'll be doing the public beta, the invite public beta soon, and hopefully we'll get a lot of good feedback like that. Staff are looking at it right now. All the content writers from around every department are currently looking at it and updating their content. But that's one of the main ideas around this website, is that it is so flexible for us to change and adapt on the fly. So if we do, even despite going by best practices, something's hard to find, this new content management system makes it nice and easy to change, and we can update it so that there are many different avenues into the important information. So when you guys are looking at it in a certain way, you'll follow a certain path. It'll be easy for that. When other people are looking for Parks and Rec schedules or garbage schedules or the map, those things are still easy to find as well.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I just have a couple. You indicated earlier, so our capacity to update and maintain, I trust that to mean internally. So we'll be, and perhaps it was more challenging and it was external previously.
It's footwork.
Thank you. You mentioned also tracking how people access the site. So there's obviously a function that allows you to determine how people access this, that you can categorize?
Yeah, we use a software called Google Analytics, and it runs tracking on every page of the site. It's very generic. It doesn't know who it is. It just tracks numbers and is able to let us see what page they came from, if they use the search, if they use the browse features, if they came in from Google, other websites. We can see what the popular websites that are linking to our site include, and we can make adjustments to our content to optimize for those different paths.
Great. Thank you very much. Motion to receive the presentation. And Victor, did you have something you
Yeah, I
want
wanted Philip to speak about next steps, so that what's going to happen next.
Sure.
Okay, so the next steps involve the pilot with the public, and there's 2 phases to that, as I recall. The first stage is a sort of a self-select group. We'll put out a news release, do some advertising, ask people to identify themselves, and then we'll provide them with some instructions. We'll meet in here probably, give them some homework on specific aspects of the website, get them to come back with their feedback, and then we'll then go out to a larger community group, kind of open it up, and get more random input from a different set of lenses, a different set of eyes, and then make all of those changes. And then once we're comfortable that we've met all of the suggestions, we'll then obviously move forward to the next stage of launching it. And I believe that would be in late spring. So we'll do some fanfare around that and continue to listen. I don't think Reed touched on it, but some of the pages actually have feedback forms at the back end where you can provide a comment on what you've just looked at. It's a way for us to make changes on the fly. Right now, if you read a page and you see something that's incorrect, or you don't maybe agree with what's on there, you can now send us a message immediately, and we can then do something with that. So it's sort of entering into the realm of, I wouldn't say it's commenting on the content, but it's in that flavor of instant feedback and people being able to give us their opinion on something, and then we can then react accordingly. Councillor Yoakum brought up a question about economic development, and they actually have a website. It's independent of the NEDC. It's one of the last things that Amrit did before she left, was to create a new environment. So that is available. It actually is launched, but we're not obviously promoting it in a huge way currently because we need to take the next steps on that portfolio. But it does actually exist. There's a tremendous amount of content on there, and it will appear as a link on this one.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Motion to receive the presentation. Moved by Mayor McKay, seconded by Bill Yoakum. In favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks. Next item. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. Will be the Heritage A Heritage Home Grant Application, 45 Milton Street, and the purpose is to obtain council approval for the Heritage Home Grant for the young hard-to-get residents, 45 Milton Street. And the recommendation you all have is that the Finance and Audit Committee recommends council approve a $2,500 home grant for the installation of a gutter system and storm windows on said residence. Would anybody like to make that motion? Moved by Councillor Yoakum, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Discussion. It starts on page 5 and it goes to page 12. Any discussion? There being none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I'm going to make that 11:30 meeting. B. Heritage Facade, 101 Commercial Street, and the purpose is to obtain council approval for the Heritage Facade grant for the Ashler Lodge Masonic Temple at 101 Commercial Street, and the recommendation is that the Finance and Audit Committee recommend council approval of $14,998.25 for the Heritage Facade grant to rehabilitate the exterior of the Ashler Lodge Masonic Temple at 101 Commercial Street.
Move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Mayor McKay. Any discussion? Yes.
It's a little bit off the topic, but I've got a real concern with some of our downtown buildings right now, and folks being required to spend money on them, people wanting to spend money on them, and I think if we look carefully at the Gene Burns building, it's one of the biggest challenges that we have in our downtown core is the unknowns that demand that we keep them as heritage buildings, and that they've got real problems. The Gene Burns building is a nightmare. 223 Commercial was a nightmare. That building didn't even have a foundation under it.
Which one's that?
The old Free Press building. I can't remember how many dollars were spent just to bring that building up to a standard to meet the current seismic. The other one, of course, is the one across the street where there was a fair bit of money spent on it a few years ago, where the Chart store was. And as you can see right now, the current owner basically said, you know what, I'm not having anything to do with this. I'm going to tear that entire building down with the exception of the facade. And because I'm not going to fool around with an old building. He's been there, done that with 223 Commercial. So I'm really curious about investing significant amount of money. I consider $14,000 to be a significant amount of money. A significant amount of money on buildings that are potential nightmares. Any comment on that? As I say, Gene Burns is a nightmare.
Well, I don't mind weighing in a little bit. Perhaps some of our longer-standing staff relative to heritage and cultural established venues. So if I understand what you're indicating correctly, spending considerable amount of money, are you speaking about the property owners themselves or the city contributing to spending considerable amount of taxpayers' monies on preservation or rehabilitation or upgrade or upkeep of private property?
Both.
And then I think I heard you also say that because we are demanding that heritage buildings remain such, and therefore there's certain things obviously that they can't do. A lot of things they can't do in order to maintain its heritage status. So I'm just going to guess it was probably pretty complex, and I don't know at what stage do we jump in and say, okay, you know what? The requirement to maintain a heritage status doesn't exist anymore. You can do whatever you want with that property because we're not interested in investing in them, or it's too costly for you to invest in to maintain its status. So there's sort of and everything has its due date. We just heard that our website has its due date, and we have to invest in it. We have other facilities that we own and operate in our infrastructure that have their due dates. I guess we could say the Civic Arena was one of them. So I would defer to staff to say, is this something that this committee would like to recommend to council, that we entertain a new policy as it relates to our downtown core heritage buildings and how we allocate monies? Or, because that's what I'm hearing in what your statement is.
I think I would do, Mr. Chair, that you know, when I say we demand, I'm meaning that the community as a whole. You know, there's a lot of people that love our downtown, they love the heritage buildings, etc. But I mean that when we watched that one poor fella down on Nickel Street with the old house there, and when he had the fire in it, I question the value of some of the buildings along Victoria Crescent. You know, yes, they're old buildings, but Gene Burns really it's really an eye opener for what a nightmare they can be for both owners and the city. I think we need as council need to go to start taking a direction. Do we want to put resources into saving the old buildings, and even forcing upgrades? So here's a building we're going to do a facade upgrade. What about seismic upgrade? Do we say we're not going to do facade upgrades on your building, or not going to give you funding for that unless you do seismic upgrades? You know, the two of them need to go hand in hand, or something along those lines. I'm looking for answers. I'm looking for direction from, thoughts from council.
So, Mr. Mena,
So
would like to respond.
My comment through the chair. I think that's a larger comprehensive conversation to have, which we could schedule at a CAO to have that conversation. I think it would require a little bit more research on staff's time, a little bit more consultation, as you say, because it's a larger community that probably has feedback on this as well. So if we could table that for a CAO conversation, and we can prepare for that and make sure we have all the information in front of us.
A suggestion, I know the board had said that, then are you suggesting that this committee make a motion so that it's literally, versus tabling the topic, make a motion to deliver something to council for their consideration, to direct staff to
a committee of the whole.
So just refer this matter to a committee of the whole? I don't quite comprehend what.
Not the grant. The conversation about the requirements for heritage buildings and all that stuff.
Because this will go to council regardless. Like, we can vote on the here and say yes, but this still goes to council anyway, does it not?
Yeah.
We're a committee, and we'll send this recommendation of the committee to council to adopt this recommendation. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you. So there's another thing for me and that is directing staff to return with some type of, we need to give direction to staff through a motion from this committee to council, and then council can discuss debate at a CAO meeting.
Correct.
But I don't know what that motion is. That's all I'm saying. I think it's a good idea, but once we deal with this item, can we go back to that then? Would that be fair? We'll finish this motion off, then we'll go back to whatever that might look like. Any other questions then? Gordon, you had your hand up. Did you want to?
No. That's
okay, then may I please call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Oh, sorry. No, I just like to, is this to do with
Yeah,
the
that's
thing?
Next discussion around this. I think before we craft a motion, we should have a report from staff to ensure that the discussion we've just had is entirely accurate with regard to the city's response to heritage buildings, because I'm not sure we do have the facts when we talk about insisting on owners of buildings maintain the heritage. These are, so far as I know, the policies we have are encouraging, but they are not, what's the word? They don't demand certain things be done. They offer incentives. If the owner wants to maintain the heritage value, we'll help them do that because we think it's important. So I'm just suggesting that prior to us crafting a motion, if the motion is based on incorrect facts, then we could just alarm the city. So I just prefer to ask for a report from staff on that.
William, thank you. I hear where the mayor was going, because I like to make it correct. I'm over the map here. I'm not gonna make a motion yet, because I like to have a conversation more. I guess where Councilor Brand was going, more educate myself. But I don't want to be stuck as is. And I want to make it so we make downtown where people, if we got to make upgrades, so we can make it like any other cool city where people can live and reside there. I'm under the impression people can't live we can't make lofts out there because of seismic and other reasons. I know I'm digressing from the heritage thing. And I think we should have a full conversation and maybe we got to cap this heritage thing, because at the end of the day, correct me wrong, are we not losing property tax when we make it a heritage building? Are we, Victor?
Sorry.
Do we lose, when it's a heritage building, do they pay property tax?
I think this, going back to some of the earlier points, I think it'd be a good opportunity for us to bring back a report on the Heritage Conservation Program, and we can address all of these questions, because I think there's some misinformation or misunderstanding about what the program really does, because there is levels of heritage protection, and with each step, there's different incentives and different actual requirements. There is no straight tax incentive programs, other than we have a program where if someone converts, for example, a heritage building to put residential in, like we saw on the building by Diana Crawler. I can't remember the address on the top of my head. Block a number of years ago went through that program and received a tax program to bring residential in there. So there are benefits for being in the heritage inventory, which we could better outline. But also a lot of I would just say, a lot of the projects we're seeing downtown that have been cited are not necessarily the city's requirements to retain facades or retain the shells of the building. They've been the owner's demand. So the most recent one across from the Great National Land Building, where they've kept that facade, that's not a heritage facade. That was their own decision to retain that facade. As the mayor mentioned, that was just built a few years ago. They could have taken that down without any heritage alteration permit. They decided it was important and they wanted to retain that. So I think that it would be an opportunity for us to bring back and clarify some of that.
That's good information, gentlemen. I just had a comment. I was just writing down to Councilor Brennan's point, which is maybe the motion could be to direct staff to return to council with a report on heritage facilities, grants, facades, implications, financial, ownership, et cetera, so I do think we do need a motion, because otherwise what do we just say direct staff to?
I like that wording.
So we do have to have a motion to direct staff to do something. I don't think Bill did everything.
I just wanted to add, just some of the different approaches that I've seen. So, for example, on Church Street or Chapel Street, that building that we refer to, the Church Store, they made a decision. You're right, to retain that facade. New Westminster, there's a very clever building right across the street from the Handel Center. Their approach was, you look up 6 stories, it looks like that building, and then there's another 10 stories on top of it.
Sure. Oh, let's go.
Sorry.
Well, I'll just make maybe I won't make that 11:30.
Sorry.
That's okay. Are we allowed to even talk while somebody's out of the room? We can't even talk, or, I don't mean that we have to sit silent, but can we talk about the subject matter or no?
You can't.
Alright.
We're not making a decision.
We have to get out of the meeting part.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, so. We are on pause.
All right, so we'll get this conversation swept back up here again, and if we could please have somebody make a motion on the topic of heritage facade report.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Could I ask, Chris to help us craft a motion on what would be helpful parameters for a discussion, a report from staff on this?
Yeah, basically, we, the Heritage Conservation Program, which we do actually have a program for the city, has a bunch of different elements. But I think the main focus in this case would be how you deal with heritage buildings and incentives for heritage buildings. So I could easily provide a report related to that. So maybe it's a request for a report just describing the city's heritage conservation program as it relates to incentives for heritage buildings.
I would move that, and I would add that there be a review of programs in other cities and how they work as well, so that we can test ourselves against that. So I move that.
So you
I'll second that.
Okay, you moved and seconded, discussion, Gordon.
I think it has to be broader than just incentives, because that's in the motion to give us a report on the incentives. I think it has to be broader than incentives like facade grants, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this goes to what Mayor McKay was talking about is with some buildings, it's not the outside, it's the inside that's the biggest problem. And Gene Burns, when you talk about that one, that's a compilation of a number of buildings, actually. It's a building on the corner, which my understanding is pretty much in good shape because of the firewall between it and a piece of burn, but we may lose that whole thing regardless. So I think it needs to be a bit broader than just incentives for facades. And you look at some of the older cities in Canada, and they're really desperately trying to maintain the heritage that they've got. And they do that with a lot of buildings like municipal halls, parliament buildings, et cetera, and they throw a lot of money into it, which means earthquake upgrades as well. So if we were to earthquake upgrade every heritage building in Nanaimo, we'd be looking at trillions of dollars, I think. So I think it just needs to be a bit broader than incentives. Maybe more inclusive. I don't know how you frame that motion.
Thank you.
I think Chris had a comment.
I'd like
Oh,
to,
sorry.
I was just going to suggest maybe it's incentives and regulatory requirements related to conservation of heritage buildings, just broadly.
Thank you. I think that
And I
fits.
could definitely report on that.
Because we definitely are working on some assumptions that are incorrect with respect to this. Would be helpful to us.
Any other comments? Okay, good. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So I trust, Mary, that somebody's got this motion crafted that will reflect the conversation? Thanks. Alrighty. Are we on budget carryovers or whatever, carry forward? And who's delivering that message?
Ms. Duncan will take the lead of that.
So we have a report in front of you as well as a summary, and every year we do budget carry forwards for projects that either were delayed and to be started this year or in progress. The amount that will be carried forward is about $26 million. It usually ends up being about that much every year unless we have a really big project, like let's say the water treatment plant was a bit higher in those years.
Oh. Okay, sorry. The carry forwards this year also includes $5.7 million for the Port Theatre. The project still hasn't moved forward. And that also includes $600,000 for property acquisition that will be put into the school district land. Okay. Most of it is engineering projects, water, sewer, roads, drainage. If you have any questions on any specific.
Thank you. I went through this the other night, and we're carrying forwarding it. This obviously would be the meeting, but it'd be in each committee. When do we prioritize?
So these are projects that you already approved in the 2021 financial plan, but we didn't start them. Either we didn't start them or complete them in 2016. So now we're going to carry forward those budgets into 2017 to finish them.
So I think my question is, I ran into a quick chat with us last night with Mr. Corson at the swimming pool. These are his kids, blah, blah, blah. So, and I was thinking, for example, like myself and this one person here, I'd like to see us move ahead and put that Northfield want that mess to rest and get that. And I see it on the book still. The Northfield.
Okay, so
whatever.
if you have questions around the Boundary Northfield project, I'd need to call our engineer, Paul Rosenbach.
Yes, I mean, like, when do we go through this list? I know we'll have things on this list that we may like or not like. I just wonder when we have those conversations.
So just to be clear, this isn't the new projects in the
No, I know.
27. Okay, so these projects were approved in the 2016 plan. Much work has been completed.
Do we have space to remove them from this list? Not saying today, but
if they haven't been,
okay.
I think council always has those choices.
Cool.
Absolutely.
This isn't the right meeting for where I was trying to go with this, but that's fine. Not at you, I'm just saying. This is just moving forward. And then we can get to that. Okay. Thank you, William.
Any other comments? If I might, I have two items. The recreation management software replacement. We started that with many other municipalities.
That's correct.
Do we know where that is in its evolution?
We don't have somebody here from.
I believe they're in the vetting stage at the moment, so they've picked they've picked a vendor, but they're trying to make sure that all of they can do all of the things that we want them to do. And I can't remember, Victor, do you remember when Matt said that?
So we should be back, I think in April.
April, I think.
With the tentative contract. So they've selected the vendor, and right now it's legal counsel across municipalities looking at the contract itself. So that should be back in front of you in April.
Thank you. And the second one, of course, is the Port Theatre expansion that I have a huge challenge with understanding how it's a project that's not a project until I just don't understand that. We can say the classware system is something that we're going to intend to purchase. The clothing for the firefighter, or whatever it is in here, yeah, they didn't buy it all in 16, so we're going to roll that money into 2017 so they can buy more boots or whatever they need. Or a sewer fight, I get that. But I don't get when we have a vision that requires a third party to raise X monies, and we call that a project in our budget. I'd rather just be a placeholder of reserves that is parked over here, and that when they meet their requirements or otherwise, then that money's set aside. It's there. It's never going anywhere. It's there. It's there for you guys, but it's not a. I just don't, and I'm not opposed to it. Great. You gotta hope they can raise money that they need. I hope the price doesn't go up every year 3 to 5% like it is to build it. But I just don't understand how it gets put in to. I'm going to put a swimming pool in my backyard, but not until such time as I get a raise. Well, I know I'm not getting a raise, so I'm not getting a pool.
It is an anomaly, for sure. Mr. Member, do you want to speak to that, or do you want to? So it is an anomaly, for sure. It is the funding source for that project is borrowing and private contributions and grants, so not reserve money, just so that you know. As to whether it should be in the financial plan or not, that's really council's decision, I think, to make.
I just don't understand it. Like, I just don't understand it. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to it. Yeah, I'd like the Port Theatre to expand, for crying out loud, and a better sound system and all that stuff. But I don't understand how this fits into how we operate. I just don't understand it.
So, as much as we think we are awesome as accountants, we are limited in some ways in what we can and can't do. The other option is to have a nod of a commitment, because council has made a commitment. So, from a standard perspective, we have to say there is this commitment, and it's this amount of money, as opposed to listing it as a project. So those are options. We'll take those offline and keep them around and see what the standards would allow us to do or not to do. But I look at those two as the options.
I'll be confused on this one for as long as I live. That's fine. Any other questions? Motion to receive. Moved by Mayor McKay, seconded by Councilor Fuller. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 6D. Councilor Yoakum asked for the tax increase statements, I suspect, or whatever, for 10-year period, maybe going back 5 and our existing 2017 to 21. Is that what you were asking?
Sure. I'd like to even go back a little longer. What they were, so it's already happened. When they were up to tax increases to this council came in, and they're projected, but also I like to have. There was budget and tax increases before you started, which was quite drastically higher than where they are today. And I would like to have that data, please. Information, please.
Okay, I think we've provided the 10 years. What we haven't provided is the comparison, but I think that's easy for us to.
That's right. In one of the budget presentations for the 2017 plan, we did provide a 10-year back, and the average over the 10 years was 2.2%. We also provided comparison to other like municipalities.
No, I want to see though on there that was when I started council, it wasn't what it was today, because I know it's political, but I need it. This isn't a stop. It's because there's a lot of people championing that high increase.
So I think I've captured what you're asking. So let's say you started in 2015. 2015. That's this January. So there was a plan, 2014, 15, to whatever, and you're looking to see the difference between the tax rates from that plan and this council's plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
The former regime of management to the new regime.
Okay. That's an easy one.
Pretty simple. And then this is what it is. And then people may not want to hear it. That's what I am. Thank you.
I have Gordon and Diane.
Okay. It's actually simpler than you think. In 2014, we approved a budget through 2018. So you give those numbers. 2015 through 2019, give those numbers. 2016 through 2020, give those numbers. 2017 through 21. So you have your list of what's been approved, and then as you go down, you can see the difference. I kind of did that by going through the city's website. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. so that you can see the differences, like the 2014 to 2018. The 2015 budget was proposed to be a certain amount. 2015, it was actually less than that. So you can see those changes. You can compare them to what was proposed the year before or 3 years ago. So that kind of graph as well. Do your 10-year thing. So if you have that graph with 2014 to 2018, so sort of like this.
Thank you, Gordon. For me, the 5-year plan is a provisional and an actual. So we get a 5-year provisional, and then every year we do the actuals. And the only way you can do that is once the year is over, you go back and say, this is actually what we actually spent. But we do forecast what our proposed tax increases are. Diane, were you next? Or
Yeah.
snoozing, or?
No, I didn't know you were finished. It just seems to me that a really simple way would be to say 2002 expected tax increase 2%, real tax increase 2.2. 2003, and just do that, and then you could look and see what was proposed and what was actuals, and you could make the comparison then from 2015 to 2007 and see, you know, which council raised the most taxes. I suppose that's the intent, is to show that. So be really clear, I think, to just do that. Am I wrong on that? No.
No, you're correct, absolutely, and we can easily do that, that's not a problem at all.
They are real numbers, it's not subjective, it's all real stuff, so, yes.
That's what I don't want, what I'm stressing here, what I don't want left out of my information I need is the proposal before you came on board. In my term, each year, 1 year was up to increase 4.6% almost. If I recall right, it's somewhere in that ballpark, and they were quite drastic, especially in our election year, 2018. It was quite under the former regime, and so I would love this information. I'd probably do homework, but I think you guys are quite smart and quicker at it. And secondly, I want that information for the fact is, for this whole event center divided in this city, we've got everyone concerned about taxes all of a sudden, including people in this council, when they've had the time in their history of this seat and they haven't fought to keep them down. We're trying. So that's my point. It is what it is. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Thanks, Victor.
Go ahead.
I've always been curious as to, we get all kinds of information when we're trying to defend ourselves. We put a report out in a certain way to show what the taxes are for a 400, for an average home in the Nile. Then of course the Taxpayers Federation does a different slant, and they spank the communities for all the things they're doing wrong, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I've never seen that I would love to see, Mr. Chair, is a report of what a family would pay for a $400,000 house in Nanaimo that included all fees, all other taxes. So in other words, it would show our tax form for this year for a home in Nanaimo, including that bottom right-hand corner number, plus all of our fees, because unlike other municipalities, we have separated a number of our fees, garbage, sewer, water. It's over here. It doesn't show up on this thing. So when I'm complaining about taxes as a citizen, I've only got this. But if I add that to the other bills that we get quarterly, or for all the other services, it's very different. And school, and RDM, and hospital, and library, and all that stuff. So I know what that number looks like. And compared to Nanaimo, with a $400,000 home, to the communities of the 3 L's, as I call them: Langford, Lanceville, and Ladysmith. Langford's always held up as this, this community on the move, and they do everything right, and yada, 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 yada. Okay? So if I own a home in Langford, somebody said, oh, taxes are way cheaper in Langford.
And yet, when you dig into it, you peel the layers back a little bit to find out maybe they're not. Although I can make a choice of buying a home in Landsville versus Nanaimo if I'm looking at what the taxes are. I'd really love to see something like that. I know this is way off the discussion that Councillor Yocum brought up, but it would certainly be understandable.
I actually don't think it's that far off from what Councillor Yocum is talking about. Like you're going to talk about taxes, tax increases, fees, garbage fees, for instance, or water, sewer. Those things are taxes. They're just not taxed with regard to an ability to pay, based on anything except that you own a house and you get garbage collection. Taxes, in fact, are, what we usually call taxes, are based on more, not really an ability to pay, but there's a standard and it says if you have a lower priced house, then you're going to pay less taxes, or a low valued house, you're going to pay less taxes. And that's the case with property taxes. It's not the case with services. Everybody has to pay, no matter how much land or assets they have. Everybody pays the same. So I'm on income assistance. I own a house that's worth $200,000. I pay X based on my $200,000 asset, but I'm paying the same payments for sewer, for garbage, for all of those things as the guy who owns the $1 million house in North Nanaimo. So if you really want a good idea of how councils have performed, if that's in the situation of what you pay to live here and use services in Nanaimo, you really need both those things. But that's getting much farther than just saying, well, how much tax do I pay based on the valuation of my house in relation to different councils' values and et cetera. But really, if you're not going to factor in those other things, you don't have a clear idea of whether people are paying.
Thank you. I get both those comments, but let's not pretend those fees weren't there in that old regime.
No, you just have to add them up and see.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to be there regardless if we had zero tax or we got 10% increase. You're going to have user fees.
Yeah, but they're going to increase.
Those user, I don't think you got my point. The
property assessment, they're going to excel by themselves.
So the fee, these user fees were there regardless when some people around here they'll have no problem with raising property taxes.
Like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but
I know.
you do understand.
I do understand that, and I understand your point. But the point is, whether we had property tax at zero, or the old regime that wanted to increase it 5 to 6% each year,
no,
or
never did. You'll see that from the numbers you get, but never mind.
Let me finish, please.
So let's not, if we can please not have an exchange.
So the point I wanted to make, Mr. Chair, is those fees can be there regardless of what the taxes are. No one's hiding low taxes in that what you're trying to apply.
Yeah, they are.
I'm not sure who was first.
Anyways, you got your
turn now, Victor. I don't know who wants to go first.
I should want to go.
So,
you're welcome to.
So as your staff and your advisors, I think our role is to provide you the numbers as they see, whatever they are. The interpretation is certainly up to you guys as to how what you interpret that. The report that His Worship is talking about is already done by province, except that they are a couple of years behind, so we have to catch up with them. I know when I got here, we were going to do something similar to what you're describing with some dollars, where you say typical home here pays this much of taxes to local government, provincial, federal. How much of that is the percentage of what they pay? We can still look into that. If you remember, the cost service review actually told you that you have high taxes and low user fees. That's the way you've structured your financing. So what it means is people are subsidizing more of services that must be used. That's whether that's right or wrong, I'm not going to get into that, but that's That's the way it sits today. And so it's a number we can easily pull that says what's the total. So for mom and pop at home, because they write one check, whatever it is, whether we differentiate it as user fees or taxes, whatever it is, they look at it as this is the out-of-pocket cost of living in an island. What's that number? And so we can pull those numbers and we can contextualize them. We can contextualize and have the conversation as you would like. So we can easily do that.
I think that would be appreciated given the fact that there's a motion on the floor to do that, and I'm sure everybody has their comments about if they're too high or too low, or what we pay for as opposed to some other city that's got 9 of these and we got 2 of them, and someone's got 6 of these and we got 1 of them, and we got 1 of something and somebody's got nothing of them. But
there's always a context to these things. So it's not always apples to apples. There's always, so we kind of need to drill down to the context of what that means. So because, for instance, somebody would say, so what services? So unless you have the same number of services you're providing, it's unfair to compare to the next guy who does not provide that service.
it's never apples to apples.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
How we try to categorize it, I think, is, well, our population is similar to that population. So Prince George and Nanaimo and whatever, or Kamloops, or we're all alike because we got the same population. But not when you look at what we have, they don't, and what they have, we don't, and whatever.
Okay.
So I guess where I was going was we've got in Nanaimo we've got taxes plus fees. Do other communities not do it that way? I mean, there are other communities that roll everything into taxes. And if they are all rolled into taxes, do seniors, for example, get to defer those, as opposed to us? So if you're in a community that's got garbage, sewer, water all in the tax bill, they get to defer those. In Nanaimo, they're getting a bill every quarterly for all those services. They have to pay.
Well, one way or the other, everybody's paying. Just however you decide to bill.
Yeah, but if I'm a senior living on a fixed income, and I'm getting my water bill, and I don't pay my water bill, I'm risking, as a senior, I'm believing that my water's going to get cut off. Right?
Yeah.
So if I'm getting into my taxes, I can defer those every year. And then when my house is sold, the city recoups what I owe them over the past number of years. The other thing is, as Mr. Mema says, one thing that we do have in Nanaimo, and the core review did cover it, because I specifically looked at that question with respect to automated garbage. A fellow that's living in Nanaimo came from West Bologna. He said, "You guys need to stop this in-service garbage system. You need to go out of, you need to go to private contractors." And I said, "Okay, well, let's take a look at that." I looked at what his garbage rates were in Nanaimo when our manager of sanitation was looking at if you get this bin and this bin and this bin, under the original proposal, we would have been paying $110 a year. In West Kelowna, it was $175. So he's right. We do have some very low service fees, and I don't think people appreciate that. They're constantly talking about taxes. So, wow. I really believe that we need to have them look so somebody can say, if you own a house in Langford, here's what you're going to pay in the course of a year, or Lansdale, or Ladysmith. Those two are easy because they're easy communities for people to work in Nanaimo and live elsewhere. And they might make that decision because of the tax levels. And we might be losing citizens because of they've done their homework and seen what that bottom right-hand corner looks like. There's that and the seniors. And how to, can they defer them? Do we roll them into property taxes as opposed to service fees? Because I think they believe that if they don't pay their water bill, they'll get the water cut off.
Yeah.
I think just for council's information, for the committee's information, you asked us to do a user fee review. That project is getting started in April. And what is what she'll be talking about is going to be, I think, left and center of that conversation. There's one lady, I can't remember what her name is, she's a senior who's been asking me when this is going to happen because she's looking towards something of that nature. And also asking why don't seniors get a discount from your user fees? And I said, well, let's not preempt that conversation. So in April, you get a presentation from consultants who start the process. Then you get into philosophy of where do you want to move with taxes and user fees and stuff like that. So if you can vote on that motion on the table, we can provide you that information as soon as we can. And then I think you'll have a larger conversation on the philosophy behind property taxes versus user fees and what levels would work well. But the statistics we'll provide you will give you the context, I think, and background towards that.
I think that's perfect, thanks. So the motion then.
The motion is we will provide you the tax comparatives, we'll provide you the total cost of services and compare with maybe 3 other communities, and that will be it.
Okay, thank you. Whatever that motion is. Whatever you guys come up with, I'm in favor.
Okay.
All in favor. Opposed, carried. And I guess that's
What's no adjourn?
what to do there.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you.